The massive ship New Horizon drifted through the empty space between stars. It had been traveling for over 200 years, carrying thousands of sleeping beings from 12 different worlds. The ship was longer than 50 football fields and wider than 10 city blocks. Its metal hull gleamed silver in the starlight, and blue lights ran along its sides like glowing rivers. Inside the ship, Captain Vex-High stood on the bridge looking at the screens that showed space around them. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large black eyes. His people, the Zeltharians, were known throughout the galaxy for being smart and peaceful. They had been in charge of the ship for the past 20 years while other species slept in the cold chambers below. But today, something was very wrong. "Captain, the readings are getting worse," said Commander Zithra, his second-in-command. She pointed at the glowing numbers on her screen. "The gravitational pull is increasing every hour." Vex-High walked over to the main viewing window. Outside, space looked different. Instead of the normal black emptiness filled with distant stars, there was something else. It looked like a giant whirlpool made of twisted light and shadow. The thing was enormous, bigger than entire solar systems. It spun slowly, and every time it turned, the ship shook. "How long until we reach the edge of it?" Vex-High asked. "At our current speed, about 6 hours," Zithra replied. Her voice was quiet and worried. "But Captain, our engines are already working at full power just to keep us from being pulled in. If we get any closer." She did not need to finish. Everyone on the bridge knew what would happen. The strange whirlpool thing would tear their ship apart like paper. Vex-High touched a button on his chair. The bridge filled with a soft chiming sound, and screens around the room lit up with faces. These were the leaders of the other species that were awake on the ship. First appeared Hive Queen Clix of the Kythera. She looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and shining green skin. Her people were excellent at building things and following orders. Next came Elder Thrum of the Vortani, whose body seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors when he spoke. The Vortani were known for their powerful computers and logical thinking. Last was Depsinger Coral of the Murdal, who floated in a tank of blue water. Her people came from ocean worlds and were very good at sensing things that others could not. "My friends," Vex-High began, "we face a crisis unlike anything our species have encountered before. This anomaly ahead of us defies all our understanding of space and physics." Hive Queen Clix clicked her mandibles together, a sign of worry among her people.
My
worker drones have run every calculation possible. This object should not exist. It bends space and time in ways that break the fundamental laws we know." Elder Thrum's crystal body flashed red and orange. "Our most advanced computers cannot predict what will happen if we enter that thing. Every simulation ends with the destruction of our ship. We must find another path." "There is no other path," Depsinger Coral said in her musical voice. "I can sense the currents of space around us. This thing has caught us like a fish in a net. We cannot go around it, and we cannot go back. We can only go forward or be crushed." For the next 3 hours, the 4 species worked together to find a solution. The Kythera built new devices to measure the anomaly. The Vortani ran millions of calculations on their crystal computers. The Murdal used their strange senses to feel for weaknesses in the space around them. The Zeltharians tried to communicate with the anomaly using every language and signal they knew. Nothing worked. The ship continued to be pulled toward the spinning mass of twisted space. The metal walls groaned under the stress. In the lower decks, some of the weaker structures began to crack. Emergency lights flashed throughout the ship as systems started to fail. Power levels dropping to 60%, reported a Kythera engineer. "The gravitational field is draining our energy reserves faster than our reactors can replace them." Vex-High felt something he had never experienced before in his long life: complete helplessness. His people had solved problems across the galaxy for thousands of years. They had brought peace to warring worlds and helped primitive species reach the stars. But now, facing this impossible thing, all their wisdom meant nothing. The other species leaders appeared on his screen again. Their faces showed the same fear and confusion he felt. "We have exhausted all conventional options," Elder Thrum said, his crystal body now pulsing with dark purple light. Our technology cannot overcome this challenge. My workers have tried every solution in their memory banks. Hive Queen Clicks added. This anomaly operates beyond the parameters of known science. Depth-singer Coral swam in slow circles in her tank, a sign of deep thought among her people. There is something else we could try, she said finally. But none of you will like the idea. Speak, Vexy said. We are beyond the luxury of comfort now. The deep chambers of this ship, in Section 7 of the Cryo Bay. There are others who sleep. Others we have not awakened in over 60 years. The other leaders fell silent. They all knew what she meant, the humans. Absolutely not, Elder Thrum said, his crystal body flashing bright red. The humans are too dangerous. It's too unpredictable. They solve problems by breaking things and causing chaos. They destroyed 3 of their own planets before they even reached space. Hive Queen Clicks clicked nervously. Their history is filled with violence and war. They think with emotions instead of logic. HFY had read the reports about humans many times. They were the newest species to join the colonial mission, and they had almost been rejected. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as brilliant, but dangerous. They had a reputation for finding solutions that no one else could imagine. But those solutions often involved destroying everything around them first. But as the ship shook again, and more warning lights flashed, HFY began to think the unthinkable. What if their chaos is exactly what we need? He said quietly. The other leaders stared at him in shock. Think about it, HFY continued. We have tried every logical approach. We have used our best technology and our most advanced thinking. We have followed every rule and procedure we know. And we have failed. Maybe the answer to this problem cannot be found through order and logic. Maybe we need someone who thinks differently. Depth-singer Coral nodded slowly. The humans see patterns where we see chaos. They find connections that our minds cannot grasp. They are willing to take risks that we would never consider. They are also willing to sacrifice everything for what they believe is right, Hive Queen Clicks admitted reluctantly. My databanks show that humans have often succeeded when facing impossible odds. Elder Thrum's crystal body had turned pale white, the color of fear among his people. If we wake the humans, there is no telling what they might do. They could save us all, or they could destroy us trying. Another massive shake ran through the ship. This time, the lights flickered and went out for several seconds before coming back on. When they did, several of the screens showed red warning symbols. Hull breach. On Deck 15, reported a voice over the ship's communication system. Emergency crews responding. HFY looked at the faces of his fellow leaders. He could see the same terrible understanding in their eyes that was growing in his heart. They were going to die unless they tried something desperate. All in favor of awakening the human contingent? He asked. One by one, each leader gave their agreement. Even Elder Thrum, though his crystal body remained pale with fear. Very well, HFY said. May the stars forgive us for what we are about to unleash. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to the Cryo Bay. Begin the awakening sequence for Section 7. Priority Alpha Protocol. The officer hesitated for a moment, then pressed the buttons that would wake humanity from its long sleep. Deep in the ship, machines that had been silent for decades began to hum with power. Lights flickered on in a section that had been dark. For over 60 years, warning sounds echoed through empty corridors as systems came online, and in their cold sleeping chambers, humans began to wake up. The human Cryo Bay was a place the aliens rarely visited. Section 7 of the ship had been sealed and quiet for over 60 years. Now, bright lights filled the chamber as hundreds of white sleeping pods began to open with soft hissing sounds at steam. Rose from the pods as the temperature slowly warmed. Inside each pod, a human body that had been frozen in time began to move. Hearts started beating again. Lungs filled with air. Eyes opened for the first time in decades. Commander Jake Morrison was the first to sit up in his pod. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. Even after sleeping for 60 years, his military training kicked in immediately. He looked around the chamber, counting the other pods that were opening and checking for any signs of danger. Status report, he said in a clear, strong voice, even though his throat was dry from the long sleep. Give me a minute, boss. came a voice from across the room. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez was climbing out of his pod, shaking his head to clear it. He was shorter than Jake, with dark hair and quick hands that were already checking the equipment. Around him, systems looked good. Everyone's waking up on schedule. Dr. Lisa Hayes emerged from her pod next. She was a woman in her 30s with red hair and green eyes that seemed to see everything at once. As a theoretical physicist, she was used to solving problems that others thought were impossible. She immediately walked to the nearest computer terminal and began reading the data. "Jake, we've got a problem," she said after a few moments. "A big one." The fourth member of their team to wake up was Amy Chen, the communications specialist. Was small and quiet, but her mind worked faster than most computers. She had learned to speak with dozens of different alien species during her career. Amy was already listening to the ship's communication channels through a headset. "The aliens are scared," she said simply. "Really scared." More humans were waking up around the chamber, but Jake focused on his core team first. These four had worked together before on missions that other people said could not be done. They trusted each other completely. "What's the situation?" Jake asked Lisa, who was still reading data on the computer screen. "We're caught in some kind of spatial anomaly," Lisa said. "The gravitational fields are off the charts. It's like being inside a black hole, except we're not dead yet. The aliens have been trying to solve this for hours using conventional methods." "And conventional methods aren't working," Tony said, looking at his own set of readings. "Good thing they woke us up. We don't do conventional." A soft chime filled the chamber, and Captain Vex High's face appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. The alien leader looked tired and worried. Behind him, Jake could see the other alien commanders watching nervously. "Humans of the New Horizon," Vex High began. "I apologize for waking you early from your scheduled rest period. We face a crisis that requires your unique abilities." Jake stepped forward so the captain could see him clearly. "We're listening, Captain." "What do you need?" "For the next 10 minutes, Vex High explained the situation. He showed them images of the massive anomaly that was pulling their ship apart. He shared all the data that the four alien species had collected. He explained every solution they had tried and why each one had failed. The other humans gathered around to listen, but Jake's team was already working. Lisa was drawing equations in the air with her finger, thinking through the physics of what they were seeing. Tony was looking at engineering reports and shaking his head at what he called alien overthinking. Amy was listening to communication records and analyzing the electromagnetic patterns coming from the anomaly. "Captain," Jake said, when Vexai finished his explanation, "we need 30 minutes to review everything. Then we'll have some ideas for you." High looked surprised. The alien species had needed days to fully understand the problem. 30 minutes? Are you certain that is sufficient time? "More than enough," Jake replied with a confident smile that made the aliens on the screen look even more nervous. As soon as the communication ended, Jake's team went to work in a way that would have shocked the methodical aliens. Instead of careful, step-by-step analysis, they started talking all at once, throwing ideas back and forth like a game of catch. "It's not random," Lisa said, pointing at the swirling patterns on the screen. "Look at these energy readings.
Yes.
There's a mathematical sequence hidden in the chaos, and it's responding to us," Amy added, pulling up communication logs. "Every time the ship tries to change course or boost power, the anomaly reacts. It's almost like it's alive." Tony was already pulling apart a maintenance panel, connecting wires in ways that made the nearby aliens nervous. "If it's alive and it's playing with us, then we need to play back. But we need to play by human rules, not alien rules." "You mean?" asked one of the Kithra engineers who was watching them work. "You aliens think too much," Tony explained, while rewiring a sensor array. "You analyze and plan and calculate, but sometimes the best solution is to just try something and see what happens." The Kithora engineer's mandibles clicked in distress, but that could damage the ship or make the situation worse. Could Jake agreed. "But it could also work, and right now doing nothing is guaranteed to get us all killed." Lisa had been quiet for several minutes, staring at the data and drawing more equations. Suddenly, she looked up with bright eyes. "I've got it." This isn't a natural phenomenon at all. It's artificial. Someone or something built this thing. Built it for what? Amy asked. To test us, Lisa said with growing excitement. Look at the patterns. It's not trying to destroy us quickly. It's putting pressure on us gradually, forcing us to find creative solutions. It's like a puzzle. Jake nodded slowly, puzzled that the aliens can't solve using their normal methods. But we might be able to. Because we're crazy enough to try things that don't make sense, Tony added, finishing his modifications to the sensor array. Okay, this should give us better readings on what's really happening inside that thing. Amy had been listening to the electromagnetic signals coming from the anomaly through her advanced headphones. There's definitely intelligence behind this, she said. I'm picking up patterns that look almost like language. Not any language I know, but definitely structured. Communication. Can you talk back to it? Jake asked. Maybe, but not with words. I think it communicates through energy patterns and mathematical sequences. We'll need to jury-rig our communication system to send the right kind of signals. Do it, Jake ordered. Lisa, I need you to figure out exactly what this test is supposed to prove. Tony, start working on modifications to our engines. If we need to do something crazy to get out of this, I want us ready. What kind of modifications? Tony asked. The kind that would give aliens nightmares, Jake replied. You might need to fly straight into that thing instead of trying to escape from it. Several alien officers who were listening gasped in shock. The idea of flying toward danger instead of away from it went against every instinct they had. But the humans just nodded and got back to work. Over the next 20 minutes, Jake's team transformed their section of the ship into something that looked like organized chaos. Cables ran everywhere. Computers showed scrolling numbers that changed too fast for alien eyes to follow. And strange modifications were being made to critical systems. The aliens watched in fascination and horror. As the humans worked, they moved fast and took risks that would have terrified any other species. They made decisions in seconds that the aliens would have debated for hours. They seemed to thrive on the uncertainty and danger that had paralyzed everyone else. Time's up, Jake announced, exactly 30 minutes after they had started. Captain Vexhai, we're ready to present our solution. The alien leader appeared on the screen again, along with the other commanders. They all looked anxious to hear what the humans had discovered. We believe this anomaly is an artificial construct designed to test spacefaring species, Lisa began. It's not trying to kill us quickly. It's evaluating how we respond to an impossible situation. The intelligence behind it has been trying to communicate with us, Amy added. I've established basic contact using mathematical patterns and energy signatures. It's been waiting for someone to talk back to it instead of just trying to run away. Tony held up a device that looked like it had been built from spare parts. And I've modified our engine so we can do something that every alien species would consider insane. Which is, Captain Vexhai asked, though he looked like he was afraid to hear the answer. Jake smiled. We're going to fly straight into the center of that anomaly. It's the only way to pass the test. The alien commanders stared at the humans, in complete silence. Finally, Elder Thrum spoke, his crystal body flashing bright red with alarm. That plan is completely illogical. It violates every principle of safety and survival. It will certainly result in the destruction of this ship and everyone aboard. Maybe, Jake admitted. But it's also the only plan that might actually work. And sometimes when you're facing the impossible, you have to do something impossible. Right back. The humans began preparing for the most dangerous flight of their lives. The bridge of the New Horizon had never been so crowded. Alien officers stood side by side with humans, watching screens that showed their ship moving closer to the massive spinning anomaly.
Ow.
The gravitational forces were getting stronger every minute, and the ship's hull groaned under the stress. Captain Vexhai sat in his command chair, his blue hands gripping the armrests tightly. He had made the decision to trust the humans, but every instinct in his body told him they were flying toward certain death. Distance to anomaly center, 50,000 kilometers, reported Commander Zithra. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the fear in her large black eyes. Jake stood at the navigation station. working alongside a Cathora pilot named Buzek. The insect-like alien had 4 arms, which made him excellent at controlling multiple ship systems at once. But he was also used to following careful, planned flight paths. The idea of improvising their route as they went made his mandibles click. Nervously. Remember, Jake told Buzek, "When I say turn, you turn immediately. Don't think about it. Don't calculate the risks. Just do it." "But Commander Morrison," Buzek replied, "that goes against all proper flight procedures." "What if we crash into debris? Then we'll deal with it when it happens," Jake said calmly. "The anomaly is changing constantly. Any flight plan we make now will be useless in 5 minutes. We have to adapt as we go." Dr. Lisa Hayes was at the science station with Elder Thrum, the crystal-bodied Vortani. His people were known for their powerful computers and logical thinking. But even their most advanced calculations couldn't predict what would happen inside the anomaly. "The energy readings are increasing exponentially," Elder Thrum said, his crystal body flashing orange with concern. "The electromagnetic interference will disable our sensors once we get closer," Good Lisa said, which made the alien stare. At her in confusion, if our sensors stop working, we'll have to rely on intuition and quick thinking. That's what humans are best at. Amy Chen was working with depth singer Coral at the communications station. The aquatic alien floated in her water tank, using her people's natural ability to sense energy patterns. Amy had connected dozens of modified devices to the ship's communication array, creating a system that looked like it was held together. "With tape and hope, I'm getting stronger signals from the anomaly," Amy reported. "It's definitely trying to communicate with us. The patterns are becoming more complex as we get closer." "What is it saying?" Captain Vexai asked. Amy listened to the strange sounds coming through her headphones. "It's hard to translate, but I think it's asking us questions. Like it's trying to understand how we think." Tony Martinez was in the engineering section with a team of Kithara workers. The aliens were excellent builders, but they followed strict rules about how systems should be connected. Tony's modifications looked dangerous and chaotic to them, but they were working. "Power levels at maximum," Tony reported over the communication system. "The gravitational field is actually helping us now. I've rigged the engines to use the anomaly's own energy to boost our speed." "How is that possible?" asked Hive Queen Clicks from her station. "It's not supposed to be possible," Tony admitted. "But sometimes the impossible works if you don't think about it too hard." As the ship moved deeper into the anomaly, strange things began to happen. The normal laws of physics seemed to bend and twist around them. Colors that had no names appeared on the view screen. The ship's gravity systems fluctuated, making everyone feel lighter and heavier at random moments. Hull stress approaching critical levels, reported a Vortani engineer. "We should reverse course immediately." "No," Jake said firmly. "We're committed now. Turning back will just get us torn apart slowly instead of quickly." "Distance to center, 20,000 kilometers, Zithra announced. Voice was beginning to crack with stress. The ship shook violently, and several alien officers were thrown to the floor. But the humans remained calm, almost like they were enjoying the chaos. Jake kept giving navigation orders to Buzek, who followed them despite his terror. Lisa continued analyzing the impossible energy readings. Amy maintained her strange conversation with the anomaly's intelligence. "It's asking us to prove something," Amy said suddenly. "It wants to know if we can work together despite being different." "Different how?" Jake asked. "Different species, different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems. It's testing whether we can combine our strengths instead of fighting over our differences." As if responding to Amy's words, the anomaly began to change. The chaotic spinning patterns became more organized, forming geometric shapes that seemed to pulse with meaning. The gravitational forces shifted, creating a clear path toward the center. "It's making a corridor for us," Lisa realized. "It wants us to fly through it." "But that passage is barely wide enough for our ship," Elder Thrum observed. "Any miscalculation will result in collision with the anomaly walls." "Then we won't miscalculate," Jake said simply. "Buzek, take us in. Follow the corridor exactly." The Cathora pilot's 4 hands moved over the controls with incredible precision. Despite his fear, his natural flying skills were perfect for threading the ship through the narrow passage. Jake provided constant guidance, making split-second decisions about their course. Left 2 degrees, Jake called out. Now right 5 degrees. Speed up. No, slow down. There's a bend coming up. To the aliens, it looked like Jake was making random guesses, but the humans could see the pattern in the chaos. They were reading the anomaly's movements like a dance, responding to its changes with their own improvised steps. As they flew deeper into the corridor, the ship's systems began to malfunction in strange ways. Lights flickered in patterns that resembled alien languages. The computer screens showed equations that seemed to solve themselves. The communication array played sounds that sounded almost like music. The anomaly is teaching us, Amy said with wonder in her voice. It's showing us how different kinds of intelligence can work together. Distance to center. 5,000 kilometers, Zithra reported. She sounded amazed that they were still alive. The corridor ahead began to widen, opening into a vast chamber inside the anomaly. As they entered this space, the ship's sensors came back online, revealing something that made everyone gasp in surprise. They were not alone. Floating in the center of the chamber was a massive structure that looked like a cross between a space station and a work of art. It was made of materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, and it pulsed with the same energy patterns that Amy had been hearing in the communications. What is that thing? Captain Vexai asked. I think it's the source of the anomaly, Lisa said, studying the readings. But it's not just a machine. It's alive, or at least it has some kind of consciousness. The structure began to change shape, forming patterns that resembled the different alien species on their ship. First it looked like a Zeltharian, then a Kithara, then a Vortani, then a Murdal. Finally it took on a shape that looked human. It's trying to communicate with all of us at once, Amy realized. It wants to show us that it understands every species on this ship. Suddenly the ship's communication system activated on its own. A voice spoke to them, but it wasn't coming from any single speaker. Instead it seemed to come from everywhere at once, like the ship itself was talking. Welcome, travelers, the voice said. It sounded like a mixture of all their languages combined into something new. You have passed the first test. The first test? Jake asked. How many tests are there? The test of cooperation, the voice continued. You have shown that different species can work together when facing the impossible. The logical aliens provided structure and knowledge. Chaotic humans provided creativity and adaptability. Together you achieved what none could do alone. The structure in the center of the chamber began to glow brighter. But this is only the beginning. Beyond this place lies a greater challenge. It's an ancient enemy that consumes entire galaxies. It has been growing stronger while civilizations like yours have remained isolated. What kind of enemy? Captain Vexai asked. A force of pure entropy, the voice replied. It turns order into chaos, life into death, hope into despair. It has destroyed 1,000 civilizations. Only by working together can the remaining species of the universe hope to survive. The humans and aliens looked at each other with new understanding. The test had not been about escaping the anomaly. It had been about learning to trust each other and combine their different strengths. The choice is yours, the voice said. You can continue to your colony world and live in peace. Or you can join the fight against the ancient enemy. But know this, time is running short. The entropy force grows stronger each day. Jake looked around the bridge at the faces of his human teammates and their alien allies. He could see the same determination in all their eyes. They had come too far to turn back now. We'll fight, Jake said simply. All of us together. The structure pulsed with what seemed like approval. Then your real journey begins now. The ancient structure in the center of the anomaly began to change again. Its flowing walls became transparent, showing images that filled the air around the new horizon like a giant movie screen. The crew watched in silence as the history of the universe unfolded before them. They saw beautiful worlds filled with strange creatures and amazing cities that stretched across entire continents. They saw peaceful species working together to build wonders that defied imagination. But then, the images darkened, showing those same worlds becoming empty and lifeless. This is what the entropy force does. the ancient voice explained as the images continued. It does not destroy with weapons or armies. It simply removes the energy that holds things together. Stars burn out, planets crumble to dust. Life itself forgets how to exist. Dr. Lisa Hayes studied the scientific readings that appeared alongside the images. It's accelerating the natural process of entropy, she said with growing alarm. The second law of thermodynamics taken to its ultimate extreme. Everything in the universe naturally moves from order to chaos, but this force is making it happen millions of times faster. How do we fight something like that? Asked Elder Thrum, his crystal body flickering with confused colors. You cannot. Fight it with force, the ancient voice replied. The entropy beings feed on energy. The more power you use against them, the stronger they become. They have consumed entire galactic fleets that tried to destroy them with weapons. Captain Vexhai leaned forward in his chair. Then how do we stop them? The images around them changed, showing different scenes. These pictures were not of destruction, but of creation. They saw species working together to build new stars, to create life on dead worlds, to spread complexity and order throughout. Empty space. The only way to fight entropy is with creation, the voice explained. You must build faster than they can destroy. You must create order faster than they can spread chaos. You must work together to make new life and new hope faster than they can consume it. Jake Morrison understood immediately. It's not about being stronger than them. It's about being more creative. Exactly, the voice said with approval. This is why the test was necessary. Species that think only of themselves can create some things, but they work slowly and fight among themselves. Only species that truly cooperate can create fast enough to outpace the entropy force. Amy Chen had been listening to the energy patterns around them through her modified equipment. There's something else, she said. I'm detecting signals from other places, other ships, other species. We're not the only ones who passed the test. The images changed again, showing dozens of different ships from species that none of them recognized. Some were organic vessels that looked like living creatures. Others were geometric shapes made of pure energy. A few looked like they were built from crystallized music or solidified mathematics. Over the past 1,000 years, 47 species have passed the cooperation test, the ancient voice said. They are already fighting the entropy force in distant galaxies. But the enemy grows stronger each year. More help is needed. What happened to the species that created this test? Hive Queen Clicks asked, clicking her mandibles thoughtfully. We fell to the entropy force 800 years ago, the voice replied. Sadly, but before our civilization ended, we built these testing stations throughout the universe. We hoped that younger species would prove more adaptable than we were. The images showed the final days of the ancient civilization. Despite their incredible technology and vast knowledge, they had been too set in their ways to change their approach when the entropy force arrived. They had tried to fight it using the same methods that had always worked before, and they had failed. But we learned something important before the end, the voice continued. The entropy force has a weakness. It cannot understand creation that comes from chaos. It expects order to follow predictable patterns. When creation becomes random and unexpected, the entropy force becomes confused and slows down. Tony Martinez grinned and slapped his hand on a nearby console. So they need us humans specifically? We're the kings of chaotic creation. It's not just humans, the voice corrected. All of you together. The humans provide unpredictable creativity. The Zeltharians provide diplomatic coordination. The Cathera provide precise execution. The Vortani provide computational power. The Murdal provide intuitive understanding. Together you can create in ways that no single species could manage alone. The ancient structure began to pulse with new energy. As it did, the New Horizons systems started to change. The ship's computers became faster and more powerful. The engines grew more efficient. New weapons appeared that could create instead of destroy, building temporary barriers of solid energy or generating fields that accelerated the formation of new matter. These are the tools you will need, the voice explained. But remember, They only work when your species cooperate fully. If you fight among yourselves or try to solve problems alone, the tools will fail. Captain Vexai stood up from his command chair. What exactly are you asking us to do? The entropy forces. Currently attacking the Andromeda Galaxy, the voice replied. Billions of species are dying every day. The 47 fleets that have already joined the fight are holding the line, but they cannot push the enemy back. They need reinforcements. How long would it take us to reach Andromeda? Dr. Hayes asked, running calculations in her head. With your current technology, over 2 million years, the voice said. Well, we can provide you with faster engines and navigation systems that bend space itself, as the journey will take only 6 months. The crew of the New Horizon looked at each other. In silence, this was not what they had signed up for when they left their home worlds. They had expected to build a peaceful colony on a distant planet. Now they were being asked to fight in a war against an enemy that could destroy entire galaxies. We need time to discuss this, Captain Vexai said finally. Time is what the universe does not have, the voice replied urgently. Every day you delay, millions more worlds fall to entropy. But the choice must be yours, freely made. Forced cooperation creates weak bonds that break under pressure. The ancient structure opened a pathway back through the anomaly. Return to normal space, the voice said. Talk among yourselves. When you have decided, activate the beacon we have installed in your ship. We will know your choice. The New Horizon slowly flew back through the corridor they had entered through. The trip out was much easier than the journey in, as if the anomaly was helping them leave. Soon they were back in normal space, the regular stars shining in the distance. For the next several hours, representatives from all the species on the ship gathered in the main meeting hall. The room was filled with nervous energy as thousands of beings debated the most important decision in their history. The Vortani argued that they should continue to their original colony destination. We have a responsibility to preserve our species, Elder Thrum said, his crystal body glowing with logical blue light. If we all die fighting this entropy force, then our civilizations will be extinct anyway. The Murdahl disagreed. The entropy force will eventually reach every galaxy, Depsinger Coral replied from her water tank. If we do not fight it now in Andromeda, we will have to fight it later in our own space, when it is much stronger. The Cathira were divided. Some wanted to fight, believing their precise building skills could help create new defenses. Others wanted to establish the colony first, and send help later. The Zeltharians were torn between their peaceful nature and their sense of duty to help others. Captain Vexai listened to all the arguments but said little. The humans, however, were united. We have to go, Jake Morrison said, when asked for their opinion. This is exactly the kind of impossible challenge that humans were made for. Besides, running away and hiding never solved anything. But this could be suicide, protested a Vortani counselor. The entropy force has destroyed species far more advanced than us, maybe Jake admitted. But they destroyed species who were fighting alone, or with only their own kind. They've never faced a truly mixed fleet where every species thinks differently. They've never had to deal with human unpredictability backed up by alien precision and logic. Dr. Hayes stood up to address the entire assembly. The ancient species that created the test tried to fight entropy using only order and logic. They failed. But we have something they didn't have. We have chaos. We have humans who break rules and aliens who make new rules to replace them. We have the ability to create in ways that even we don't understand. The debate continued through the night. Some species wanted to vote immediately. Others wanted to study the problem for months. The humans suggested they flip a coin, which horrified the methodical aliens. Finally, Captain Vexai called for quiet. This decision cannot be made by committee or by majority vote, he said. It requires the kind of leadership that acts on instinct and hope, rather than certainty. He walked to the center of the room where everyone could see him. I am activating the beacon. You go to Andromeda. Half the room cheered. The other half sat in stunned silence. But, Vexai continued, any species that wishes to continue to the colony world may do so. This must be a choice made freely by each group. By morning, the decision was clear. 3 weeks later, the New Horizon floated in empty space at the edge of their solar system. The massive ship had been split into 2 smaller vessels, each one still enormous, but carrying different destinies. The colony ship, now called New Dawn, pointed toward the Kepler system, where peaceful species would build homes among the stars. Captain Vexai stood on its bridge, watching the other ship prepare for its journey. About 40% of each species had chosen the safety of colonial life, including many of the older and more cautious members of their communities. The warship, named Starforger, pointed toward distant Andromeda Galaxy, where an ancient enemy waited. Commander Jake Morrison stood on its bridge, looking at star charts that showed a journey no one had ever attempted before. The ship carried the younger, bolder members of each species, along with volunteers who felt the call of duty stronger than the desire for safety. Both ships had been upgraded with technology from the ancient testing station. Their hulls gleamed with new materials that could repair themselves. Their engines hummed with power that bent space around them. Their computers processed information faster than any machine, built by their species. But the most important changes were not in the technology. The most important changes were in the people. Final systems check complete, reported Lisa Hayes from the science station of the Starforger. All species integration protocols are working perfectly. The Vortani computers are talking to the Cathra engineering systems. The Murdal sensors are connected to the Zeltharian navigation array. And the human chaos generators are ready to confuse everyone, including ourselves. Jake smiled at that last comment. The ancient intelligence had been right about human unpredictability being their greatest strength. Over the past weeks, the humans had worked with each alien species to create new ways of doing things that none of them had imagined before. Tony Martinez had combined human engineering creativity with Cathora, precision to build machines that could construct entire space stations in hours instead of years. Amy Chen had merged human communication flexibility with Zeltharian diplomacy to create a universal translation system that worked with any form of intelligence. Lisa Hayes had mixed human theoretical physics with Vortani computational power to develop engines that could travel between galaxies in months instead of millions of years. Message coming in from the New Dawn, announced Amy from the communications station. Captain Vexai wants to speak with us. The main screen lit up with the image of the colony ship's bridge. Captain Vexai stood there with representatives from each species who had chosen peaceful settlement over war. Commander Morrison, Vexai said formally, the New Dawn is ready to depart for the Kepler system. Before we separate, I want you to know that we will not forget what you are doing for the universe. And we won't forget that you're preserving our species for the future, Jake replied. If we fail against the entropy force, you'll be the ones who carry on our civilizations. Elder Thrum appeared on the screen, his crystal body glowing with mixed emotions. The colony will serve as a backup for all our cultures and knowledge. But more than that, we will study everything you learn in the coming battle. Perhaps we will discover new ways to help from our safe distance. Hive Queen clicked her mandibles in a gesture of respect. The colony workers will build monuments to honor those who chose to fight. Your names will be remembered forever. Depsinger Coral swam in slow circles in her tank, which among her people meant she was saying goodbye. The currents of space will carry our hopes with you to distant Andromeda. May you find calm waters beyond the storm. Jake looked around his own bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had chosen to follow him into the unknown. Each species was represented, but they were the risk-takers, the dreamers, the ones who could not sit safely while others suffered. Take care of yourselves, Jake told the colony ship. Build something beautiful. We'll try to make sure you have time to finish it. The two ships separated slowly, drifting apart until they were just points of light to each other. Then their new engines activated, bending space around them in impossible ways. The New Dawn vanished first, heading toward their planned colony among peaceful stars. The Starforger followed moments later, disappearing into the dark between galaxies. The journey to Andromeda took 6 months, during which the mixed crew of the Starforger learned to work together in ways that surprised everyone. Humans taught aliens how to improvise and take creative risks. Aliens taught humans how to plan carefully and think through consequences. Together, they created new forms of art, science, and technology that none of their species had ever imagined. When? They finally arrived at the edge of Andromeda Galaxy. They found a war unlike anything in their wildest nightmares. The entropy force was not an army or a fleet of ships. It was a spreading zone of nothingness that consumed everything it touched. Stars went dark, planets crumbled to dust. Even space itself seemed to forget how to exist properly within the affected areas. Fighting against this force were the 47 fleets that had passed the cooperation test before them. Each fleet was a mixture of species working together, creating temporary islands of order and complexity in the spreading sea of chaos. "Welcome to the front lines," came a transmission from the nearest Allied fleet. The speaker identified himself as Commander Nexus Prime, representing a coalition of machine intelligences and organic species that had been fighting the entropy force for over 200 years. "We're ready to help," Jake replied. "What do you need us to do?" "We need you to do what humans do best," Commander Nexus Prime said, with what sounded like exhaustion in his voice. "We need you to try something that everyone else thinks is impossible." Over the next few hours, Jake and his crew learned the true scope of the challenge they faced. The entropy force was not just destroying Andromeda Galaxy, it was learning from each battle, adapting to the strategies used against it. Every time the Allied fleets developed a new technique for creating order faster than chaos could spread, the entropy force found a way to counter it. "The problem is that we're all thinking too much like ourselves," Lisa Hayes realized after studying the battle reports. "Each species is contributing their own strengths, but we're still following predictable patterns. The entropy force has learned to expect Kithra precision, Vortania logic, Zeltherian diplomacy, and even human chaos." "So what do we do differently?" asked Tony Martinez. Amy Chen had been listening to the communication channels used by all 47 fleets. "I think I know," she said with growing excitement. "We need to stop being separate fleets working together. We need to become something completely new." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Look at our ship," Amy said, gesturing around the bridge. "We're not humans using alien technology or aliens using human creativity. We've become something that's neither human nor alien. We're a new kind of intelligence that thinks in ways none of our original species could manage alone." Lisa's eyes lit up with understanding. "And if we can get all 47 fleets to merge their thinking the way we have, we'll create something the entropy force has never encountered before. A meta-intelligence," Tony added.
Oh.
"Not just cooperation between species, but the birth of an entirely new form of consciousness." Jake looked out at the battle raging across the galaxy and made the kind of decision that only humans would consider. "Amy, open a channel to all Allied fleets. Tell them we're going to try something insane." Over the next several days, the Starforger became the coordination center for the most ambitious project in galactic history. Using the communication techniques Amy had developed, it began linking the consciousness of every fleet, every species, every individual who was willing to join the merger. The process was chaotic and terrifying. Minds that had evolved on different worlds, under different suns, with different ways of understanding reality, suddenly found themselves sharing thoughts and memories and dreams. Many individuals could not handle the change and had to disconnect. But those who remained became part of something greater than the sum of their parts, the entropy force, which had been slowly advancing across Andromeda for centuries, suddenly found itself facing an opponent it could not understand or predict. The new meta-intelligence created order in ways that seemed random but followed patterns too complex for entropy to analyze. It built new stars using techniques that violated physics but somehow worked. It generated life and complexity faster than chaos could consume them. For the first time in galactic history, the entropy force began to retreat. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starforger, but he was no longer just Jake Morrison. He was also part of something larger, a new form of consciousness that spanned multiple galaxies and included thousands of species. He could feel the thoughts of alien minds light years away, and they could feel his. "Status report," he said, though the words came out in a mixture of human speech. Kithra clicks, Vortani tones, and Murdal harmonics. "The entropy force is pulling back to the galactic core," reported what had once been Lisa Hayes, but was now something more complex. "It appears to be regrouping, trying to understand what we've become." "Let it try," said the collective voice of Tony Martinez and a dozen alien engineers.